Don't take candy from a stranger has been a warning that's been passed down to children for generations. Yet, in the heart of Houston, the parental caution became a tragic reality when 28 boys and young men were found brutally tortured and murdered. The culprit? The local friendly Candyman, Dean Corll. But, in a shocking turn of events, Houston would not be getting a confession from Dean Corll, but by his accomplice, who would lead investigators straight to where the horrific, killing crime spree began. This is the diary entry of the Candyman. Let's begin.
He decides upon young, attractive women being his victim.
I guess human or non-human biologics.
Non-human.
I call on you to quit exciting your children when all they're doing is going to quiet rest.
And Sheridan goes in search of the real Bigfoot story.
Possession, control, violence.
What is that noise?
I'm going to tell you in detail why you have been kidnapped, what's going to happen to you.
It could either be in an animal form, or maybe a human form, or a half human, or a half animal.
That man is believed to have been America's first serial killer.
Your only chance to evacuate is to leave with us.
These are people who are seen as a threat. They're going to go on walking around after they've died. They're going to come out of their graves.
Tell me in a sentence who you are. Nobody. I'm nobody.
Hello everyone, I'm Addison and this is Addison's Dark Diaries. If you're new, welcome, and if you are returning, welcome back to another crime-filled, mystery, paranormal, spooky story that I have grown to learn and come discuss with y'all. Today, we will be exploring the middle of the heart of Texas in Houston Heights. If you have not, please like and follow, and let's begin this horrific crime that I don't feel has had a lot of attention, not even as necessarily the praise, but you hear about all these other horrific serial killers and it's other horrific crimes, but this one was shocking and very disturbing, and I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more attention and kind of justice that it deserves, especially that there are still missing children to this day, and they don't actually know how many murders Dean Corll actually committed. There's also been an unidentified young boy as of now that has never been claimed. So with that, I want to share it and make sure it gets spread. I know people have talked about it, I've seen videos and stuff, but we need to get this story out and help give closure to some of the family with missing boys to this day, as well as those boys that their bodies have never been claimed or told who they were. So yes, let's begin the diary entry of the Candyman. This story begins in the mid-1950s in Houston when Dean Corll's mother and stepfather started a candy company called Pecan Prince, where Dean Corll and his younger brother would frequently work and help operate the machines of the candy company, and he became super involved in it at a very young age. By the time his mother had already divorced his stepfather, Corll had been already very invested into the candy shop, with taking a quick hiatus to Indiana while also going through the Army. With that, Dean Corll had a very kind of troubled childhood with speculations of abuse and many kind of disturbing factors that would soon draw to where he would become one of the most renowned serial killers to this day. But with this, he would continue to work for his mother and the candy shop. And where in 1962, he continued his work with his mother and moved the candy shop to Houston Heights, where they would revamp it and name it Corll Candy Company. Dean would continue to work in the candy store, where he'd be promoted to be vice president, but his role in the candy store wasn't as pure as he let on. The candy store itself was a major success, attracting all sorts of ranges of customers, such as young teenage boys, as employees and as customers. An important note to also consider is that this candy shop was directly opposite of Helms Elementary School, where a lot of students would bypass it on their way home and to school. With this, Dean Corll began the repertoire of being a friendly father figure to troubled teens and many runaways. Even with this, he would then install a pool table in the back of the shop where he would allow employees and other troubled teens to come and have fun and relax in the back. It was kind of like a friends lodging and hangout place for these young boys. It was reported that Corll was openly flirtatious with the youths and would befriend many of them. Among them was a 12-year-old David Brooks, who, like many others, was first introduced to Dean Corll by offers of candy and a place to hang out. But over the next 2 years, Dean Corll would groom Brooks. And by the time that Brooks was 14, he had been regularly sexually assaulted by Dean Corll. And with this, he would bribe him with gifts and money for his silence. As Dean Corll continuously abused Brooks, he was still on the lookout for many other victims to rape and murder. It would be later determined that Corll committed his first murder in September 1970. By around this time, Corll's mother had divorced her third husband and decided to move to Colorado. But Corll insisted he wanted to stay and found his new passion as being an electrician. Now, in his early 30s, Dean Corll had found a new apartment, but he would frequently move to new locations throughout his whole killing spree. Corll's first known victim was Jeffrey Conan, an 18-year-old student who was hitchhiking from University of Texas to Houston in 1970. It would be 3 years and many more victims for his body to be found horribly mutilated and gagged under a rock. It would just be a few months later where Dean Corll would abduct 2 more teenagers and have them gagged and bound to his bed in his home. He was in the process of abusing the boys when suddenly Brooks appeared at his house. Those young boys' names were Danny Yates and Jimmy Glass. Corll then frantically tried to cover his tracks, telling Brooks that he was part of a gay pornography ring and that he had sent the teens to California. But it wouldn't be that long later where he would confess to Brooks that he had actually killed the boys. To buy Brooks' silence, Corll bought him a Corvette and would offer Brooks $200 for any boy he would bring to him. And sadly, Brooks agreed. So that's when his killing spree took its course. So on January 30th, 1971, Dean took 2 more boys with David Brooks' assistance. The 2 boys, 15-year-old Donald Waldrop and his 13-year-old brother Jerry, were reportedly heading to a bowling alley when Dean pulled up. It was only a mile from his previous location of another boy he had taken. Then, in spring 1971, 3 more boys disappeared. One was 15-year-old Randall Harvey. He was said to be good friends with David, and he was found riding his bike to work when he was intercepted by Dean Corll and David Brooks. Through the autopsy report, it showed major torture before he was shot in the head. Later boys would be Mally Winkle and 14-year-old David Hillagist. Mally had known Dean well and used to work with him at the candy shop. The 2 boys were walking to the pool before and during the same fate and would be found later under a storage shed. Dean seemed to get smarter with each victim. That would evidently get the police off his trail. He threatened Mally to call home and say he was okay. Most of the parents hounded the police, saying they believed that their sons did not just run away. With getting cryptic letters and cryptic phone calls, most of the kids were just on their way to go do what they did daily, and to just suddenly up and disappear, most of the parents did not believe that whatsoever. As Brooks learned Dean's type, he introduced him to Elmer Wayne Henley. But Wayne was told to be a very charismatic kid that Dean grew fond of quickly. And he decided that he would groom Henley to participate in the same sick offer that he gave to Brooks. And sadly, Henley accepted. So, Dean and his 2 teenage accomplices ransacked Houston and abducted young boys and young men from ages 13 to 20, where they would cruise the street in Corll's Plymouth GTX muscle car or his white van to lure the boys, often using candy, alcohol, and drugs to get them inside the vehicle. Dean Corll and the boys would take their captives to Dean's home, where they would play a game called the handcuff game. They would basically challenge their victims after they were under the influence of drugs and alcohol to try to escape handcuffs. And when they couldn't, they would then sexually abuse and torture them. Each victim was said to be tied up to a torture board that Dean had created, where he would sexually and brutally assault and murder the victims. Afterwards, some of the victims were shot or strangled to death. But one thing did stay consistent. Every boy that was brought back to Dean Corll would be murdered. And Brooks and Henley actively participated in these crimes. Henley was described as being especially sadistic. In 1970, Dean Corll moved his crime in his home to Pasadena, Texas. And from June throughout August 1st, Dean gave fully into his blood lust, and 8 boys lost their lives in that home. But eventually, his 2 accomplices began getting bored. They were not as thrilled with committing these crimes as they once were. On August 8th, 1973, Wayne showed up to Dean's house with 2 of his friends, Tim Kirkley and Rhonda Williams, a girl. Dean had actually killed Rhonda's boyfriend only a year before, and it would be said that Williams would have been the only girl ever targeted in the murder spree. As they arrived, Dean was very upset to see that Henley had brought a girl. He never wanted girls. He just wanted boys, and Henley knew that. The group drank heavily and huffed paint to get high before ultimately passing out and falling asleep. When Henley awoke, he had discovered that he had been tied up alongside Williams and Curley. Dean Corll waved his .22 pistol in his face, saying that he knew he only wanted boys. Why would he bring a girl? Basically that he was trying to make Dean look like a fool. Henry then pleaded with Corll to untie him, saying that the 2 of them would kill Curley and Williams together. Corll eventually gave in and untied Henley and brought Curley and Williams into his bedroom to torture, saying that Henley had to rape and kill Williams while he tortured Curley. And to this day, no one really knows why. What was the sudden change of behavior and what really drove Henley to this point? But when Dean was distracted, Wayne had enough. And when Dean put the gun down, he picked up the gun and pointed it straight at Dean Corll. As Wayne pointed the gun at Corll, he shouted, "I can't have you killing all my friends," and shot Dean 6 times. And that would ultimately kill the Candyman.
It's Wayne.
Yes, this is Mama, baby.
Mama?
Huh?
I killed Dean.
Wayne?
Ma'am?
What are you doing?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Tim urged Henley to call the police and basically said, "We're not leaving it like this. You need to let investigators know." Wayne called the police, who arrived at the scene, where he would confess the same day about everything that has been happening in the past 3 years.
What did he tell you about this location out here?
He told me that he had David Hilligus out here.
What did he say about David?
He told me that he had killed him and buried him out here.
What did he want you to do?
He wanted to pay me to find people and bring them to him. And help him do his thing. And kill him.
Wayne then showed the police where the victims were buried. Within a week, investigators uncovered 17 bodies from a boathouse shed. Then another 10 bodies were found on High Island Beach in the woods near the Lake Sam Rayburn. And police wouldn't find the remains of the 28th victim until 1983. With the confession, he also confessed that his friend Brooks was also involved. Henley would be sentenced for 6 murders and sentenced to 6 life sentences to the role of his crimes, while Brooks was convicted of 1 murder and received a life sentence as well. So with this, Dean Corll is remembered as one of the most notorious serial killers in Texas history. So it is still unknown how many victims he actually killed. Those were the victims that Henley and Brooks buried. We don't know how many he buried himself. And although some parents did get their closure, it still remains unknown how many young boys lost their lives. So, with this, there is still an unidentified boy to this day. But since this diary entry seems to conclude here, why don't we go take a look ourselves at where these crimes were committed and see if there's anything further we can help find investigators and parents. Let's go, shall we? Hi guys, so welcome back. We are today exploring the different places that Dean Corll went and killed some of his victims, as well as the candy shop, as well as the sheds that the bodies were found, his old place. We're going all around Houston to basically show you where all these horrific crimes took place. I am currently by Helms Elementary, where I am going to take you across right where the candy shop was once located. It is now a house with different communities. They are behind me, and I'll show you where it was once located. The school is currently happening right now, so you'll hear children in the background, which kind of makes it more sick feeling that it was so close, and he was able to sorry. I am on 22nd Street. 22nd Street in Lawrence. Here is the area. So the first place we are going to is the candy shop store called Corll's Candy Shop, where his mother began his candy shop, and then Dean Corll worked there, which is where he also got his 2 accomplices, and he would basically just bribe and like bring little boys to come and work there for him. And it was very, very sick. And to know that it was right across from the elementary is even more disturbing. Yeah, they are all just houses now. And yeah, so we'll just make our way down there, and then I will show you where the house is. I'll show you the elementary school that is right across. And then, you'll see what, it looks like today in 2024. So if you were to be walking down this way, a lot of children would be walking down this way to head to Helms Elementary, that is just around this corner. And here is the 22nd Street where the candy shop lied. Every time I come to one of these places and there's just like now homes developed there, it's freaking freaks me out a little bit. It's always so like eerie. Okay, so here's the homes. Would have been where Corll's candy shop was. It is now a home in a brick side building, and here's the elementary school straight ahead. So they would just walk from here to over, or after school head over and grab some candy, which is so sick. But yeah, here it is now. It's just a home. But yes, that is it. Right behind me is where the shop was once, and now it just turned into a house. And there lies all its dark secrets. So now we are going to head to our next location and see what that has to hold. I hopefully will be able to give y'all aerial footage. If not, I'm attempting more aerial footage and stuff of all the places. So now let's head to our next location.
Do you want to drive around?
Kind of already did. So I had to switch to my phone just because I have not been getting the best response with the camera. So we are going to switch to the phone to look around. I was at a different apartment. It was the wrong apartment and kind of got ran off there. So we're going to try over here. I believe this is where one of Dean Corll's apartments were. But I am unsure exactly. If it's the right area. I'm walking around because I have an aerial footage of the apartment, and I don't necessarily know exactly, but I'm trying to look around and see if I can pinpoint from ground level if it's over here. Like I said, it has been a little bit not as welcoming, which granted, this is people's homes and I'm the one coming in, so I understand. I'm just gonna keep walking and see. come around to the other side. I drove around. Once again, I parked in someone's spot, and then they got very frustrated, and so I moved. I cannot tell. To be honest, this looks like the most familiar on here, but it doesn't have that little covering, so I am unsure. But with this, I think I'm going to head to our next location. So this was one of the apartments that Dean Corll resided in when he had brought some of the boys. I don't know if this was the first one where he got caught and said he was like in a sex ring to like throw his track off. But we're gonna go to the next one. And then, yeah, please be careful. There's two apartments right next to each other. It is not the blue one, it is the teal one, which it looks like the picture. I don't know why I went into the blue one, but from the last location here was 15 minutes. Please be careful, don't come at night, and make sure you are, you know, have some protection. So, and yeah, okay, so let's head to the next one. So we are now at a other apartment that Dean Corll was at. He had many apartments that he moved throughout his killing spree and his life, but I'm going to the two that I was able to, you know, find and were close. The distance from the last one to here was around 18 minutes. It is right across. I don't exactly know what like apartment building it was, but it is right behind me. It is known that he had boys come there and he had a torture board and would do horrific stuff to them. I think he moved to this one when he became an electrician, not when he was living with his mother and had the Dean Corll candy shop. But yes, this is the place. It is, like I said, 18 minutes probably from the drive from the last apartment to here. They are all relatively close, 20 minutes far. His last final destination where he would lose his life by his assailant was in Pasadena. I drove down there earlier, so I'll be putting footage of that at the end, just because I wasn't able to make it today, but I had been prior when I was in the area. The house is now for sale, of course, and they also are not very happy with you going, but you know, there's also the grave site that I wasn't able to go, but people have went. It is not like a grave that, you know, it's like celebrated or like celebrated his death. It was just because he was a veteran, so everyone has a grave. They just honor them with a grave site. It's nothing, you know, I wouldn't even visit it, wouldn't care to pay her respects. But this is it. This is the area. This one is a lot nicer, and you know, it's just feels a lot more safe. So this one I'd recommend. Once again, all these things come during the day. Some of them I did go to at night. Wouldn't recommend unless you also have someone with you. Always bring someone back. But yes, this is the area, his apartment, or one of the apartments. So we are now going to head to the sheds where they had found the bodies of 11 boys. And so let's head there now. I think so. We are finally at the last location of today, which was the boat shed where Henley took the police to show him where Dean Corll and Brooks and him dumped the bodies, where 17 bodies were found. This is the shed as of now. But here it is currently. It is all covered up. It took us about 15 minutes probably to get over here. It is in this little back here. So yeah, I'll take y'all to the side. Okay guys, so we are now in the center of Houston Heights, and this kind of concludes all the places that have been found of Dean Corll and his Henley and Brooks, and we have traveled to all the places, and I hope that kind of showed you, like, you know, location wise where everything's at. It's just a sad story. So thank you guys for watching. There is still a young sir that is unidentified to this day. There's a couple, I think there's a couple, but there's one for sure that he has not been identified. So if you have any knowledge or any clues to help, I'll put the link and the people you contact to help with that. If you know anything, make sure to give closure to the families for him and him as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and this is the sad ending and the sad story of the Candyman killer. This, I guess, concludes the diary entry of the Candyman. Thanks guys.